piles to remind you of what to do, no more trying to remember it in your head, no more Post-it notes. It's complete. 100% of things are documented, right? No more kind of leveraging all different systems to remember. It's complete, it's centralized, it's categorized. So you're looking at things by your major category because, again, we prioritize within a category, not across categories. The commitment means that you've got a deadline, at least for your top priorities. We want to have a deadline associated just to keep the pressure on with your top priorities. And I'm talking good pressure, right? We want it to be reasonable pressure, appropriate pressure, pressure that you have the capacity to deliver on. The final and most critical C is that you are consulting your to-do list, your world-class to-do list, on a regular basis. I generally find that about once a week I need to do a thorough review of my to-do list, and that thorough review can take 5 minutes, can take 15 minutes. It's not a long process, but I need to do that at least once a week. Now, we've also talked about you having the short-term versus long-term to-do list. Your short-term version, we call that the daily plan. You might plan 1 day in advance. You may plan a week in advance. You decide what works best for you, but you want to be crystal clear about where you're drawing the line. Anything like, so for example, I plan a week in advance, so my daily plan, my one-page handwritten daily plan template works for me until Friday. Anything beyond Friday goes on my long-term to-do list. As well, our inboxes, our electronic inboxes, function as a way to track our tasks. As you know from our last session, the goal is to stay current with our email and to keep your inbox functioning like a short-term to-do list. And if we only tolerate emails sitting in there for a few days, with the goal being to knock those off the list over the next few days, then that can function very well. If we have 500 emails in our inbox, it's not going to work that way. There's too much clutter in there. Of course, if an email comes in and you think, oh yes, I'll work on this next month, then you want to move it out of your inbox, but to make sure you don't forget about it, you put it on your long-term to-do list. Just to recap from last session, which was all around the system, about how we manage our email, we want to be applying the touch of once principle. We want to be batch processing our email, i.e. around our focus sessions. We're just going to cluster our email and batch process them. And then we want to knock them off in a sequential fashion. We are not cherry picking. We're not jumping all over the place. We're just going in order. Okay, so in terms of organizing your physical space, last time we talked about some elements of organizing our electronic, at least our inbox. Today we're going to focus mostly on our physical space with a few hints about our electronic world. But I find that the physical world is where people struggle the most with organization. What I see out there is people are much better about organizing their electronic world. So my number one tip around organizing your physical world is to treat your workspace, whatever that workspace is. You could have the huge corner office, you could have a cubicle, you could have a shared office, whatever it is. You want to treat your space based on the real estate principle. And, I want you to think, what is the number one principle in real estate? And of course, as soon as I say it, you'll do the big aha. Location, location, location is the number one principle in real estate. And what we want to consider with our office or our workspace is that there is prime location and less prime location. So we want to think about your command central in your office. And your command central is where you sit. That's your chair. So that's you, right in the middle, right there. So anything that's at your fingertips should be critical information or a critical office tool. So if you use your stapler all the time and your binder clips and your paper clips, your pens, all these things, these office tools that you use all the time should be right at your fingertips. So your top desk drawer right there. The project you're working on right now, obviously, warrants, taking up prime real estate right on your desktop. Right? But as you emanate out, as you radiate out from this command central, right? This layer right here could be, the staging area right behind you, or the filing cabinet that's maybe a step or two away. Whereas This level out here would be, you know, the armoire that you got to get up from your desk and walk around to get to at the corner of your office, or it could even be outside of your office. Maybe your assistant has some files out there. But as you emanate out or radiate out from the center of your circle, you want to think about strategically putting information and tools further and further away from your command central based on how much you need to access that office tool or information. So things that you want at your fingertips, that real estate, you only want that taken up by key information. So for your reference, I'm providing you with a summary that's, that I am drawing inspiration from Kerry Gleason, who wrote the Personal Efficiency Program. And in here, he spoke about how we have different types of files, but this principle applies to office tools and books and all sorts of, you know, different things that are in our office, where we have our working files in this case, and those need to be kind of very easily accessible right at our fingertips. And there are the reference things, right, that we're using them less frequently, but we still want access to them pretty easily. But they radiate further out from Command Central. And then there's the archive stuff. That doesn't even need to be in our office. Okay, so if we think about your office, some critical things from the real estate principle is that this working space right here, your desktop, that is your numero uno prime real estate. And so as much as it is okay to have a picture of, you know, the kids over here, and it's okay to have a, you know, the pens right here, the pen holder right here, I would like to see the working area clear, right? So only one thing at a time. Obviously, you're going to have room for your computer somewhere, kitty corner or off to the side, and then ideally you have a credenza or a countertop somewhere close by where you can set up your staging area. And the staging area is really for the stuff that you plan to work on later today. So while on your desktop right here, you have the #1 project that you're working on right now, the one thing that's taking your attention, you know, on your staging area you have, let's say, you know, 4 or 5 other piles or files with projects that you plan to work on later today. So I'm looking back at my staging area right now. Of course, on my desktop, I have my notes related to this call right now. And I look on my staging area behind me, and I have 4 piles of stuff I plan to work on later today. So it's kind of like the batting cage or the warm-up area. And what I want you to think about is treat your office like a conveyor belt. And when you finish this project, and this project goes on to the next stage, I want you to bring this project forward right here, right? So it's the conveyor belt. The project gets brought forward. You add your widget, and then you move it on down the line, the conveyor belt, right? So there's no room for inertia here. There's no room for things getting clustered or piled on top of each other. We're literally moving things forward and then moving them on down the line. Now, where do they get moved on down the line? Well, that depends on what the next step in that process is. It might go back into your filing cabinet. It might go back to your staging area because tomorrow you're going to have to do more work on it. It might go to one of your colleagues or to your assistant so they can work on it, or they can put it in the files out by their office. Whatever it may be, that's going to depend on the specific project. But we want you to be kind of dealing with one thing, finishing that task, and moving that file on to the next step. Okay, I'll just pause now and see if there are any questions about that. I'm clearing off my slide here. Okay, so continuing on, clearly I'm showing here on slide 22 a picture of a clear desk, right? Now, I am okay if you spread your stuff out. I certainly have my stuff spread out here today because I'm referencing my slides, I'm referencing some research, I'm referencing some notes, and then I've got some notes about the call, and I've got some notes about various people involved in this program and their goals. So I've definitely spread my stuff out, but when this is done and when I'm ready to move on to my next project, I will pile this all up, put it away, you know, purge the stuff I don't need anymore, and put it where I need to put it, whether that be back in the file or onto my staging area if I need to do some more work related to it. So the next organizing principle that I highly recommend is to organize your files. And this picture obviously is horrendous. I've yet to see anyone's files look this horrendous, but I certainly have seen a lot of unfiled papers out there. And what I would like to see you do is to turn your files into literally a thing of beauty. So on slide 24, I'm showing here a beautiful file drawer. And so here's some tips around your file drawers. One, I do always like to say file drawers and maternity clothes are very similar in the fact that we definitely want to have room to grow. You never want to buy tight maternity clothes. Some of the women on the call may be able to appreciate that statement more than some of the men, but you never want to buy tight maternity clothes. Same way, you never want to jam a file drawer too full, because you want to be able to maneuver in that file drawer easily. If your file drawer is too full, you will not want to try and jam anything more into it, and you will not be keen to try and find anything in it because it's just too hard to get in and out. So I want you to think when your file drawer is about 80–85% full, it's time to start moving stuff out of there. And you might be able to purge a little bit, and you might be able to move stuff, transition stuff to another file drawer. But at some point, you got to kind of stop and go, this file drawer is getting too full. I got to kind of just tweak the system. You might want to spend a few minutes tweaking the system. Now, in terms of what's in your file drawer, I'm not overly picky about you being able to justify every single piece of paper. I don't think that's the best use of your time. You may be able to go through and quickly purge some of the bigger things, and that I think is a good use of your time, is to make some big decisions. But I don't think you need to go through every single paper in every single file. If you had tons of extra time on your hands, sure, maybe you could, but there's probably better things you could do with that time. So instead, I'd like to see you invest your time, and I think you could definitely ask for help with this project. You could ask your assistant if you have an assistant. You could ask a summer student if your company gets summer students, et cetera, et cetera. But I'd love to see nice, clean, not tattered files, crisp new folders with nicely labeled, nicely crisp labels that all go up one side. So I don't want your eye jumping from the left to the right as the labels jump back and forth. I'd like to see them all end up down one side. And, crisp, bold, thick, big letters, black font on a white label works really well. That contrast, we can see it really well. I personally like to see computer-generated labels, but if that's too onerous and you don't have the support to make that happen, a nice thick black Sharpie on a white label can work really well in nice printing, your own handwriting. We actually recognize our own handwriting better than we recognize other people's handwriting. And what I would suggest going forward is that you keep a supply of file folders on hand in your office. So we've got a stack here and labels as well. Now, what I do, because I get support on creating the labels, is whenever I get a call from someone new and it's about a new project, I pull out, obviously, white piece of paper to make my notes, and I pull out a brand new spanking file folder. And then what I do is I take a sticky note, and I use the sticky note to make the temporary label. So I might say RBC, and then I'll write dash, and then I'll write the division that I'm working with to initiate kind of a new project that I might be doing with RBC. Then over a period, my office manager will go through and she'll collect a bunch of those with sticky notes and she'll make the brand new label. So that's a kind of an interim way to get your stuff into a home right away. Now, I see a lot of people who like to use lots of different colors of file folders. I would suggest that you strive to keep it as simple as possible. I think that when we use multiple colors,